r/AskReddit drug addicts of Reddit. What is your daily routine? My thing was speed. Seeing as my particular drug of choice takes 3 normal days and makes them one hellish one, I'll go over my routine during the course of a several day long span. I'd wake up extremely groggily and slowly, feeling like I was walking through molasses trying to go anywhere. So I'd stay in bed until the time I needed to get up, then take 60-90mg Adderall along with a cup or 2 of coffee. I'm a physics major, so I'd usually have a problem set or 2 to do. Once the Adderall kicked in, I'd sit in the science center and work 4 hours, up to 12 straight, in the same position without moving, except for the frequent bathroom breaks, after which I'd sit back down and resume my proofs, etc. If I had to go to class or work or something, I'd go, but would keep consuming a steady supply of coffee, Red Bull, and tons of water throughout the duration of whatever I was doing. Every 4 hours or so I'd do another 30-60 milligrams of Adderall, depending on how much I had allotted for that particular binge marathon. I wouldn't eat the entire time, and my skin would constantly feel hot to the touch. My heart would race, palpitations were frequent, my hands would shake, and I would be extremely jittery. I would just be your typical idea of a speeded up person. And I loved it. Towards the end of the second day, I'd simultaneously be fully awake and very fatigued, which is a singularly miserable state in which to find oneself. My body and mind would work slower and slower, but wouldn't ever be able to stop for rest, because the AD, like a slave driver, would make them power through. At this point it was no longer enjoyable, because no matter how much I took, the kind of euphoria I loved from the beginning would refuse to make an appearance now. So then I'd wait for my body to get this devil drug out of my system, for my running mind to slow down, for my heart to stop racing, albeit all just enough for the diphenhydramine to overtake it all, and let me rest. If I happened to fall asleep with still some amphetamine in my system, it would, needless to say, be a very unrestful sleep. I'd wake up every few hours to drink more water. But once the long sleep came, it had lasted good 24 hours. This meant that I'd miss everything that happened, all classes, social events, meetings that I'd scheduled. If I was particularly on top of my schedule that week, I'd have made sure to cancel/flake on everything during the big sleep before it actually came. Then, after my hibernation, the whole process would begin again. While I was using, I was extremely unreliable, my behavior was erratic, and I was generally an unpredictably volatile being. Adderall was my best friend in the world, and I often call my separation from it the emotionally worst breakup of my life. It sounds crazy, but I loved everything I thought it gave me, because it allowed me to shed all the human trappings of existence, hunger, tiredness, and everything mundane. But eventually I crashed and burned, landing myself in a psychiatric hospital, being held against my will. Now I'm 71 days clean and absolutely loving it. The chaos is gone, and everything has been normalized once more. I used to shoot heroin the way most people will drink a glass of wine. I used a moderate amount most nights. Just to unwind, there was usually ice cream involved, and lots of cigarettes. I'm having a difficult time right now with alcohol. I'd estimate I've had a problem for 5, maybe 7 years or so, maybe more. I've managed to get 2 undergraduate degrees and a law degree despite this. Anyway, after a failed business, I'm now living at home with my parents. Planning ahead, like others have said, is crucial. I wake up anywhere between 11 AM and 2 PM and hope there's something left over from last night, because I usually don't remember how much I drank before I passed out. If not, I go downstairs to see if my mom is around. If she left me a note saying when she'll be back and I have time, I'll immediately run out and get a big bottle of vodka, 750 milliliters, because I can get that in without her there and it's cheaper. If she's home, or I don't have time, I'll go get 2 smaller bottles, 375 milliliters, and tuck them into my knee-high dress socks under my jeans that I wear with my boots solely for that purpose. Literally bootlegging. Since I wear bootcut jeans, they are not visible, so I can sneak them in. I'll even sit on the sofa for a few minutes or so with her to prove I didn't get anything while I was out. Then comes the planning. If I have a small bottle and 1/3 of another, I know I'll make it through the night. Sometimes I only buy one small bottle to try to cut down and end up in that horrible place between being properly drunk and sober and annoyed by that fact. I did that today and I don't know what's going to happen later. I only have half of it left and I don't feel fucked up enough. So what do I do? Do I go out for more? I'm sure I can drive, but tomorrow is going to suck. Do I chug it now and hope it works, risking a DUI later in the evening if it doesn't? I'm trying to break the chain, but it's become such a habit that I don't know how I can. I promised myself today was the last day before I try to get my shit together tomorrow. For me, it's entirely reactionary. If I'm with friends having a good time, I drink like a normal person. If I'm depressed and in my own head, all bets are off. Wake up. Hit snooze. Hit snooze at least 3 more times. Brush teeth, outside for a smoke, and hit the shower. Groan under the hot water for at least 15 minutes, trying to burn some of the hangover away. Drive to work, right in between half-past and hungover, praying I don't get pulled over. Grab a tequila coffee so big I can swim laps in it. Stumble into work and hope nobody notices. Somehow make it through the day, and since I didn't bring lunch, grab a slice or a sub for lunch. Now the work day is done, and it's time to head home. Inventory the smokes. Are there enough for the night? Try to remember if there's enough ice and mix. Maybe pick up a bag of chips or something when I get more smokes. Stop at the liquor store and pick up a 375 milliliter bottle of whatever and 3 or 4 500 milliliter beers. Now I'm home. Crack the first beer and use it to chase a solid shot of the booze. There's a nice glow. Good. Wait 10 or 15 minutes until for the warmth to spread before the first bowl of the night. Fire up the computer. Take off my clothes and throw them on the pile on the floor. Put on my tattered robe for better days and then grab the least dirty glass from the massive pile in the sink. Sit in front of the comp in my underwear, bathrobe and socks, drinking and smoking the night away. Maybe make a phone call. Maybe have a wank. Once in a while, score some lines or an oxy just to mix things up. Toss the empty beer cans in the general direction of a trash can. Maybe empty the overflowing ashtray, but only if lit, but put another burn mark in the table. Try not to miss the toilet when I piss. In fact, try to piss a little harder to scrub the freckles off the bowl. Down that last shot, then stagger into the bedroom and flop down on sheets that haven't been laundered in a month. Bam. Coma sleep. Lather. Rinse. Repeat. For 30 years. Picked up my 6-month chip last week. In those 6 months I have lost 40 pounds, got a promotion, new clothes, new furniture, and this week I get a new car. I ended a toxic relationship and have a great social life through the people I have met in AA. I'm not healed, but I'm healing, and I have a sense of optimism for the future that I haven't felt in decades. Relying on a molecule for your happiness is a lot like repeatedly hitting yourself in the forehead with a hammer. It feels really good when you stop. How did I quit? I usually leave my computer on. So in the morning I just give the mouse a wiggle and it lights back up. One Friday night at 2 AM I was at the bottom of a 26 ounces, and I don't remember much. I remember thinking that it would be easier to hang myself at work because the ceilings are 20 feet high and my neck would snap rather than choke. I remember browsing Silk Road and trying to figure out how long it would take to get my hands on enough heroin to kill me. I remember crying a lot. I was hammered, alone, and in a tornado of emotional pain. When I woke up on Saturday morning and the computer lit, there was a list of that day's AA meetings on the monitor. When hammered, shit-faced drunk me leaves a message for sober me that there's a problem. It's time to listen. Lots of other people had tried to tell me, and I wasn't listening. But this message made it through. I went to my first AA meeting that day at noon. Best ducking thing I ever did. Alcoholic here. Wake up 4 AM. Can't get back to sleep. Take 6 to 10 Advil to stop the pain. Take 2 milligrams of Klonopin to stop from shaking. Eat half a roll of Tums to stop the burning. Lay awake, tossing till the sun comes up. Tell yourself, today is the day I'm not going to drink. Have coffee, skip breakfast 12 noon. Hands start to shake. Fuck, I need a drink. Just one drink to calm you down. I'll stop after that 3 PM, and I'm trashed on a couch watching Netflix, smoking cigarettes, ignoring texts 6 PM and you're bombed, rambling incoherently to anyone who will listen 8 PM passed out in a state of near death on a couch 4 AM wake up. Today is the day I'm not going to drink. I still have trouble defining myself as an addict. I just really liked being out of my head. At my worst my schedule was wake up, finish drink from last night, bike to class, stop at liquor store on the way for 1/2 pint, drink all during class, stop at liquor store for 5th, work/drink during work, go out to the bar, then, hopefully, come and finish 5th, before passing out in the chair. My daily life, when I was using, wake up opposite at about 8 to 9 AM. Shoot up heroin in the bathroom with the shower running, so roommates didn't know what I was up to, often mixed in meth/coke for the energy boost. I would then get ready and drive to work as a salesman for a major cell phone retailer. Shoot up again in the car before I walked in the door. Many days I would steal iPhones or Galaxy S3 phones and pawn them to stay high. It's a miracle they can't prove it, and just withheld my last paycheck, or I would be in prison today for theft over $20K. I would also call my parents and make up reasons I needed money, and sometimes just steal shit from people's garages. I sold everything I owned, including my own phone and computer. I had to. If I did less than a gram of heroin a day I got sick. To actually get high I had to mix in Xanax or alcohol or meth or coke. Another part of my routine was contemplating suicide. Usually thinking about driving off a bridge on the highway. I shot up everything except alcohol and Xanax, cause there's no reason to do so for those. I shot up about 7 to 9 times a day. Man, I've got 6 months clean a week from today, and posting this reminds me of why. Thanks for reading. TLDR, shot up heroin all day and had sticky fingers. It sucked. When I was 12 I did my first line of meth. It did not really become a habit until I was about 14. For a year I would go to school after being up all night, come home, smoke some weed, and do some more meth with my boyfriend at the time and his best friend. When they would go home I would be up all night geeked out of my mind, constantly cleaning or doing homework. My grades were awesome that year. Then morning would come, and I would go to school and start all over. I would go days without eating or sleeping. My mom did a lot of drugs so she knew, but she was geeked out all the time as well. My friends at school had no idea. That was never really their scene. I got really skinny really quick, but I looked gross. Looking back at pictures my face was all broken out, and my clothes were hanging off of me. I quit doing it every day right after my 15th birthday. I was actually ready to drop acid for the first time, but got scared and chickened out. After that I quit smoking weed, and quit everything else. It was easy. Although whenever I smelled it, when my mom was doing it, I would get the shakes bad. This lasted for a long time. Well into my 20s. The thought of it would make me crave it. I loved it. I only quit because I saw what it did to my mom and did not want to be like her. I'm 26 now, and that life seems like forever ago. I don't really talk to anyone who knew me back then, so on the rare occasion I tell someone that story they find it very hard to believe. I agree. I'm a totally different person now. Just as an afterthought, my boyfriend quit well before I did and grew out to be a very responsible, healthy Marine. I used to pop Ritalin and Adderall like it was candy, to the point where I would be in a speed-like trance all day. It got so bad that I needed to wake up an hour earlier before work to pop a pill and feel its effects before I had the energy to roll out of bed. Stopped cold turkey caused major depression. I wake up and I'm miserable because my dad's got me on lockdown. I need a meeting. In a ho, let me give you my pre-jail routine. I wake up and the first thing I do is prep the shot. Like before I even think, I prep the shot. I take a deep breath. I tie off just about an inch above where I'm planning to enter the vein. I release my breath and push the needle in, waiting to see that bright red sign that I've hit my mark. As soon as I get it, I remove the tie and push my liquid version of heaven into my arm and blast off. That's the best I'm going to feel all day, and I know it, so I savor it for a second. Then I go outside and smoke and proceed to start my day. I went to work. I got home. I went to meet my drug dealer, bought some more, and repeat. It was a truly miserable existence. Working for money, to run out, and spend every dime of it, for not enough junk. So glad I don't have to do that anymore. I would usually wake up around 6 AM to the sound of my dad getting ready for work, and I'd go throw up in my bathroom. If I threw up or pissed the bed, I would usually have a garbage bag in the room to throw my sheet in, so I could take care of it later. This only happened a few times, but it got more and more frequent. Usually the vomit was dark black, goopy, and extremely acidic. I found out later it was blood. I had a constant supply of Tums that I would eat from. I would then drink a bottle of water, a hit from the bong to reduce nausea, and some Valium to stop myself from shaking. I would then wake up at around noon and take more Valium to stop shaking. I would usually sleep until about 2 or 3 PM, sometimes up until 6 PM. Once I woke, I would take a few shots of Captain Morgan to keep the constant body high going, and depending on how much weed or Valium I had, I would try and make some calls to get some more. Around 7 PM before my mother left for work, I would go through her meds to find Klonopin and Ambien that I could take later in the evening. I was always thinking ahead because I like to be completely fucked up by around 11 PM. She took a quarter of a 10 milligrams of Ambien to sleep, and I would usually take about half of her bottle over the month, between 20 to 60 depending on the script. Denial. If I wasn't hanging out with friends that night, I would be on the computer all night, or with my girlfriend getting wasted and popping Valium. Each Valium was 10 milligrams and I'd usually take around 20 per day. Eventually I would get really nauseous because I forget to eat or just took too much, and I'd have to smoke weed and eat more Tums. If I didn't want to stop drinking at this point, I would purposefully push the contents of my stomach up and I would vomit violently and then continue drinking. By the time it was all winding down, I would take up to 40 milligrams of Ambien. At the time I liked to tell myself this was to sleep, but I always stayed up and drank with it in order to gain more of a body high / psychedelic experience. Usually by this point my girlfriend would be passed out and I would just be on the computer. Many of these nights I spent crying from 2 AM to 5 AM, either when my dad would wake up and he could console me, or my girlfriend woke up. Needless to say, those two and my substances were my only coping mechanisms. Many times my father would come check on me to make sure I was okay every morning. This was my routine for 3 years until right around age 22. The only thing I have left that reminds me of it is a bald spot of cement on my floor where my black vomit destroyed the carpet, so we had to cut it out. When we got new carpet, They did this when I was in rehab. They left that cut out. Every morning my feet touch the cold reality of the world, and I'm ever so grateful that I'm alive. Sorry this was long-winded. I had a hiccup last night after 2 years of sobriety, and this was really perfect timing for me to write. At the moment, my routine consists of total abstinence from drugs and alcohol for the first time in 23 years. October 25th will mark my 9th month clean. Prior to that I was chasing the dragon, smoking pot, snorting coke and drinking endless cans of beer, preferably in that order, and in the same sitting. Overall, I'd say my most routine drug was pot. I started smoking it daily in 1989, and by the mid-90s I was literally getting high every morning, noon, and night. Painkillers entered the fray around 93, and by 97 I experienced opiate withdrawal for the first time. By the late 90s, my opiate use had abated somewhat, but only because I was drinking heavily instead. Every morning, I would wake and bake, stay high all day, and start throwing back Heinekens with dinner. I was a relatively well-adjusted and productive addict. I put myself through college, maintained above a 3.0 GPA, and graduated from a private liberal arts college with a bachelor's degree. I was completely geeked on weed and Percocet in my cap and amp gown, and I accepted my diploma with a smirk on my face, as if I was proving something to the world. In 2000, I landed a job at a major cable TV network, primarily because I had a friend who worked there who told me that they didn't test employees for drugs. Brilliant, I thought. Not long after I was hired, I realized that my stellar health insurance plan was tailor-made for an affable junkie such as myself. Thus, I began a strategically structured regimen of drug seeking and doctor shopping. It didn't take me long to find what Burroughs referred to as croakers in his professional guidebook Junkie. Oh, I was living the dream and rising to the occasion of all my adult literary heroes. Burroughs, Jim Carroll, and that venerated liege of light and letters, Dr. Thompson, would be proud. By 2006, the dream had taken its inextricable turn to nightmare as I was taking painkillers in the morning solely to prevent junk sickness. At the time, my narcotic of choice was a particularly seductive combination of codeine and the barbiturate butalbital. 5 of those knocked back with some chocolate milk around 6:30 and a couple of bumps of coke in the car on the way to work would have me sauntering down CNN's long plastic hallways like Dean Martin on an Ether Jag. To say that my behavior had become erratic would be an insult to understatement. If I wasn't slurring my speech with a gleam in my eye at work, I was naked on all fours, sweating profusely and spewing bile into my toilet in the middle of the night. My wife was ready to divorce me, and my employer was ready to fire me, but I won the lottery and was forced to take a leave of absence and work to go to rehab. After that, I managed to clean up my act for a few months, but by 2007, I was back in the game, and by 2010, I was fired. I managed to hide my use from my wife for a few more years and finally hit rock bottom last January in a cheap hotel room. The jag that had led me there was straight out of a bad Lifetime original movie. Driving around the most frightening neighborhoods imaginable with a one-eyed, 55-year-old hustler named Levi and his lethargic pit bull Honey Bean. At one point I had a loaded .45 caliber Glock and $500 worth of Afghan smack in my lap as I drove past 2 police cruisers who were speeding in the opposite direction. My windows were down, and as their sirens and flashing blues filled the interior of my car, I laughed maniacally to try and rival their intensity, but for the first time in 3 days both Levi and Honeybean looked genuinely concerned for our well-being. As I finished up the heroin, alone in my cheap hotel room, for the first time in my self-storied drug saga, I wasn't enjoying it. I was high out of my mind, as numb as I could ever want to be, and all of a sudden, I felt a palpable sadness wash over me like a ghost, and I don't believe in ghosts. I was out of money. My gun was in the pawn shop and my wife and 2 little boys were at home wondering where I was. It was a terribly long time coming, but I had finally crossed the river. I'm not sure if it was death that visited me at the Days Inn, but I'm certain that it will be if I ever return. Wake up, make coffee, drink coffee.